so much, Kim. Thank you to the World Affairs Council for, again, hosting an important conversation with the World Trade Center Los Angeles. And today we're joined, as Kim mentioned before, by 3 distinguished guests who are able to share some thoughts into the current situation when it comes to local manufacturing. As many of you know, Los Angeles is actually one of the top manufacturing centers in the United States, with previously, before the COVID crisis, with over 360,000 manufacturing jobs locally. And obviously with COVID-19, this has impacted our ability to do the same thing we did before. And what we're seeing is a lot of these local manufacturers are quickly pivoting to new ways of operating, and especially with a huge demand and surge of demand of PPEs that we're not able to get internationally the way that we're used to because of the disrupted supply chain. A lot of these new ingenious ways have been created based on our local capacity, and it's created new paradigms and new models of operation. This potentially can also set the future for Los Angeles in the future. So we're very excited to learn from each of our speakers in terms of their perspective and what can happen. As Kim mentioned earlier, there audience participation down the line, but we have quite a lot of questions to go through. So would love to get each of the speakers to give maybe a quick 2-3 minute overview of your thoughts in terms of how your company or your agency has pivoted your operation to respond currently. So why don't we start with Kathleen with Reformation. Would love to hear from you, Kathleen.
Thank you, Stephen, and thanks for having us join. Reformation's a women's apparel brand based in Vernon, California. We were founded in 2009, and we make really beautiful dresses. For the most part, we make a lot of event wear, which might feel even less relevant today than ever. But we've always been really committed to people and the planet. We've had sustainability as the core of who we are and how we operate since we started. And so once COVID-19 became a pandemic and started to come and affect us closer at home, we knew we wanted to get involved, and we knew we wanted to pivot right away. So we actually reached out to Ricardo, we reached out to the mayor's office and asked how we could best help. One of the things you mentioned is, LA has this really rich garment manufacturing function. We have operators, we have sewers, we have materials that thankfully actually could really easily pivot to support some of those immediate needs. And it's been really incredible to see not just Reformation's own factory and facility step up to do some of that work, but really what the city has been able to mobilize. So we actually converted our own facility, so we're just making non-medical masks now. We're making about 30,000 a week in our own facility. And then we work with close to 30 partner factories in Los Angeles. So we've been able to actually engage our partner factories and get them involved in the effort as well. So that's kind of what we've been up to. We've also supported Ricardo and his team directly in terms of just setting up the LA Protects program, and I know he's going to talk much more about that. So just wanting to make sure that in the spirit of collaboration, in the spirit of mobilizing, again, really across an industry, how can we share those best practices? How can we share the lessons learned and really come together during this time?
That's fantastic to hear about the collaborative approach that you're taking. Alexander, we know that prior to this, LaLa Land is one of the largest local manufacturer for LVMH, and to pivot, I can't imagine that'd be easy. Could you talk a little bit about your experience in terms of how that's happening? Ricardo, I think you're on mute still. I'm sorry, Alexander, I think you're on mute, sorry.
Okay, here I am. I'm sorry. Learning how to go on webinar is not very often that I go on webinar. But in regard to how we switched, about 2 months ago, when I start seeing my supply chain started to get interrupted from China, then after that in Italy, I am a manufacturer of leather goods for the high-end shoes and handbags here in Los Angeles. And I knew that this thing is gonna hit home soon. So I start to gather globally all my resources for the things that I would foresee that they will gonna be needed in here. So rather than focusing on the what city has asked us to do for the protective mask with the cotton material, I went further and went a little bit more because I'm an electrical engineer and engineered to be able to go a little bit deeper what we would really need. So I went to the mask making with the polypropylene and melt blown material to be able to fulfill a more of the frontline protective people like nurses and doctors. So we switched our factory, and I brought on board about 10 factories that we do currently around 60,000 units of the protective gowns daily production. I bring 2 containers per week from Turkey and Bangladesh and China, and we will provide the needed material that it is globally, it is lack of it. It is very, very big shortage globally, but due to the fact that I had a global resources, I was able to bring all of those and secure our raw material. And now we also imported N95 mask making machine, fully automated, that can give us 56,000 units of the N95 mask per day. So that it is right now we are putting together as well. But in the meantime, also I helped put up together some video how people they can make their own mask in home and also distribute it to their loved ones or to their front defenders by providing the materials that it is suitable for those kind of the mask making at a very, very, very affordable cost. So, and gladly I can say that we have been very successful in that. We have donated to the our city police department, fire department, park and rec, and all of those people from the other leftover actually of the material that we're cutting for the gowns. It becomes perfect material for making the protective mask. So it has been a very successful, I can say. And we just ramped up our production in overseas as well to 1 million gowns per week. And we will be bringing globally as well as producing domestically.
Perfect. Thank you, Alexander. And I have to look at those videos. I tried to make my own mask 2 weekends ago and it didn't do too well. So maybe video being a bit better. And also great to hear, you know, in terms of the sharing information and collaboration as well. Speaking of which, I want to first thank Ricardo and the mayor's office for your leadership during this very difficult time. I've been watching the daily conferences, news conferences from the mayor to get updated with information. I know that you and your team, the entire mayor's office, a lot of people have been reassigned to emergency operations centers, so know how hard you guys are working. So thank you for taking the time to join us. With that said, would love to hear a bit more about in a time like this, we're hearing a lot of negative news reports from around the world. Would love to hear some positive things. What's been happening around, especially your partnership with these local manufacturers to do good for the local region. Would love to get your perspective on that, Ricardo.
Sure. I think kind of 3 things. First, starting off with LA Protects and kind of, you know, having a conversation about what some of these non-medical masks would look like. There are so many great examples or really great masks like the one that Alexander is making. Our goal really in putting out this mask was about saying, hey, these are some standards that people should really be thinking about while they're innovating, producing new masks, and that's a process that's going to be continuing. At the beginning, I saw some stuff that I was certainly concerned about, seeing masks made out of materials that you couldn't breathe through, right? So we wanted to start off in the place where, let's talk about a mask that is made out of materials that are readily available and have some kind of approval or sign off from medical and healthcare professionals that these are appropriate for non-frontline workers. So it's been amazing to work with Kathleen and Reformation on that and helping organize people. We have something over 400 companies who have signed up to kind of raise their hand saying we're ready to make this stuff. And we've seen folks sign up to buy them. Spectrum bought something like 150,000 masks. So nationally, there are 64,000 of their technicians that are visiting homes, an average of 5 a day, using some of these masks, helping to protect the worker, and of course the different families that they're visiting while they're fixing people's cables or setting them up with internet. So that's been really fantastic, and it's been evolving. The other thing that has been really great is that, you know, we've been visiting a lot of factories that have signed up for LA Protects to make sure that they're abiding by the 6-foot social distancing, disinfection protocols, that they have the county checklist. And, you know, it's been wonderful. People are getting the message. They know what people want to be safe. And what's really great about manufacturing is that it's so much an industry where, you know, it's about process. It has a culture of, you know, putting safety first, and, you know, let's feed into that process and culture the need to be aware of COVID related health and workplace issues to make sure that that's fed in. I visited Alexander's shop before, and it's amazing. Haven't visited it recently, but I'm 100% sure that he is taking every precaution to keep people safe. So I can't wait to be able to drop by his shop to see how things are going. So this is one example of what's going on. The other thing has been the 3D printing community and what's been, you know, potentially N95 level respirators with HEPA filters, right? And printing face shield, which has been an incredible partnership that has been coming out of Keck. We also had I don't know if you all know of Wet Design that does these dancing fountains. They have a really amazing injection molding machine that they're using to print out thousands of face shields. That's just a couple of examples of what we're doing here with manufacturers and how manufacturers have really stepped up, because LA is really sort of a town of entrepreneurs, and we've seen that drive really sort of, people are looking for a problem to solve. They're not just waiting for someone to tell them to solve that problem.
Great. Well, prior to this, we've been having these weekly webinars, and we've had actually the Port of Los Angeles. We've had a representative from Air China talk about, you know, kind of the supply chain disruption that's been happening with cancellation when it comes to the vessels are coming in, as well as limited flights coming in. So I'm sure that it's been more difficult to get the supplies and the materials that are necessary to make the product that you guys are making. Kathleen, can you talk a little bit about, you know, what you're seeing, you know, in terms of that supply chain disruption and how that's affecting your work, as well as what you're seeing, you know, in the international market in terms of what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Alexander, you know, our supply chain started to kind of go upside down in January. So we've had a few months to review, adapt, and with much of China opening up over the last 30, 45 days, we're seeing some recovery there. For us, the biggest issue still is just freight, right, and getting it here. So don't check the cost per kilo of air freight right now. It'll give you a heart attack. So I think that there's those constraints are definitely real. One of the things that our business model has always allowed for, though, is like designing and operating within a constraint. So our normal production cycle is actually driven by producing based on materials we have on hand. So you give the designers those parameters, and they have to work within them. We ended up doing something really similar for masks. So similar to what Ricardo said, one of the benefits of doing a non-medical mask right now is you can use materials that are readily available in stock, available from mills actually here in Los Angeles. And in our case, given the changes in inventory forecasting and sort of underlying business changes, we've been using a lot of our existing raw materials inventory to make these masks. So rather than try to battle with importing more technical fabrics or things that we would normally probably source for this case, given the sense of urgency, we wanted to turn this on and we wanted to start making masks tomorrow. We've really learned how to operate within those constraints. I will call out that we've had some really incredible mill partners here in Los Angeles that have donated materials, have really gone to make sure that we do have the appropriate specifications for materials that meet the Kaiser Permanente and other kind of recommended specs. So big kudos to, again, the LA kind of manufacturing sector. Again, pretty unique. We're probably one of the few places in the country that can go next door to the fabric mill. And that's really how we've approached it so far.
That's great to hear. I think for a long time, for us at the World Trade Center Los Angeles, we have to tell the rest of the world how great Los Angeles is because we have all these capacities, unlike many other regions that are dependent on one or two industries. We have many different industries that we can rely on. So during these emergency crisis situations, we have some flexibility. But as we're moving forward, we're also seeing that when it comes to production, that you guys are really quickly able to transition to making material. It's not just about the material, it's also about the equipment as well. Alexander, can you talk a little bit in terms of, in order for us to be able to produce these material, these new product, you need the right heavy machineries or the equipment. How are you able to do so? And especially when transitioning, you need to train your employees to do so. Like, what has that process been like for you?
It was very challenging. It is very, very interesting because all of our equipment, it is heavy machineries used for the leather goods, that it has much heavier machines that they stitch that. We didn't have any, let's say, single needle sewing machine or bias or overlock and none of these things. I had only one overlock that was parked in my warehouse forever, and I didn't know what to do with it. So all of a sudden that we have to understand how all this machine works and what we can do with them. And so I went out and I purchased a significant amount of the machinery immediately and set up our internal part. But in the meantime, I went out to this cutting service company that is our bigger bottleneck. This cutting service company, when I went to them, they were crying literally on my shoulder that what we're gonna do, what's gonna happen to us, what has happened. They said, just trust me, believe me, just help me to get these things going. We will be having a lot of jobs. That cutting company right now making 50 million masks per day, doing 3 shifts a day. And it is amazing to see the success that they turn around in such a short time that he doesn't even have time for me to cut my stuff anymore. So, but the machinery, it was one thing, but also know-how, it is another thing. My guys, they were lasting shoes. They were making luxury bags, Louis Vuitton bags. Every stitch, it is very important. The distance from the edges is important. But right now, we need the speed. We need the quick, rapid overlock stitch. And it was a little bit hard for them to transition. We started with the 200 units per day, and we were very proud. But right now, we are making about 5,000 with the same team, 5,000 units a day. So everybody learned, everybody got faster, and everything got excited. And they're really, really are appreciating us that we didn't lay them off. We gave them opportunity to relearn another skill, and they are providing needed equipment for us throughout the whole country. And as well as they are dignified, they are not handouts, they are working for what they are doing. And that's what my goal is. I want to bring the manufacturing in California. It is the only thing that saves us. Thank God that some of us left in here and we do local and domestic manufacturing, and we are not dependent 100% to China or overseas manufacturing. And that's what it helped us to be able to mobilize and bringing all these manufacturers to, for instance, Kathleen teams, they are doing the Kaiser Permanente version. We moved a little bit deeper. We went a little bit level higher. We do the level 1, level 2, level 3 gowns. And we do the surgical mask, not, but we do our own version using polypropylene and melt blown material in middle and polypropylene outside. That is much better than the regular mask, that surgical mask that people they're using, but it is not certified N95. We pushed quickly to learn about how FDA works and how we can submit all the paperwork to get the FDA approved. It has been a daily learning. I sleep only 4 hours a night. And every night I'm on the phone with Turkey to secure our supply chain of the polypropylene is coming in. And I'm talking with the Bangladesh to make sure that my other version of the material is coming in. And then China, I paid them in advance for the container, and they returned my money. And they said, no, we cannot supply it because the price doubled. So it is crazy. And in addition, on top of that, We have a limited of the transportation. Every day, the price of the per kilo, it is doubling almost. It is ridiculous. And it is no availability. So I decided to charter our own plane. So I am right now in the middle of the negotiation to charter our own plane, and we're going to bring our own product ourselves. We are not going to wait for the DHL for 30 million cubic meters staying on the backlog and not being able to serve us for the stuff that we really need it here now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, not 2 weeks. And that's every day it is challenge. I am a perpetual entrepreneur. I had multiple companies that started from zero, and I love this kind of the challenge. Actually, I think I'm born for this kind of activity, and I'm really enjoying it, to be honest with you.
It's interesting because we're hearing a lot from kind of our partners how quickly they're pivoting as well. So American Airlines, for example, just mentioned that now they're doing cargo planes that they've never done in years and years. So it's fascinating how people are able to be so entrepreneurial about the changes. A quick follow-up. I know there are a lot of questions that are starting to build up from our audience, so I want to get to them. But now that you've pivoted and you've changed to produce some of these materials and these new products, when we get back to normal, whenever that is, are you planning on keeping some of these operations here? We're hearing that a lot of, Kaiser Permanente and other folks are, for a risk management perspective, they want to make sure that they're no longer just completely dependent on China for production anymore. So is that your plan to basically keep some of those elements, or are you going to go back to the original, kind of production of the products that you're making before? Kathleen, maybe you could go first.
Yeah, I think our intention is to keep producing these as long as there is a demand for it, like an addressable market for it, and a need in the community. So we don't think that this is going to be that V. I think everything we're hearing is that especially as people are actually going back to work, there might be an increased demand for especially the non-medical masks. So we're still building our capabilities, we're still keeping that capacity, and we'll really hopefully keep something that's very flexible and can adapt to that demand as we need it. I know, again, we're a fashion company, so that's we've always been kind of product first, and our core customer is so funny. They've been really vocal about what type of designed mask they want, what prints they want to wear. And again, in the grand scheme of things in COVID, I'm like embarrassed to tell you this, but we realize that also is going to be a part of our future. You're going to want to have lots of them, and they want to coordinate with your outfit, and that's going to be an actual thing.
So, Alexander, are you guys going to be making Louis Vuitton leather mask?
Actually, believe it or not, they are already out there.
But I do think that we should be clear that is a future. That's going to be something that people need, not necessarily need, but want, and they will need continued protection when they're in shared spaces and going about essential functions. And I think that's safe to say probably for the next 12 to 18 months, not just the next few weeks. So that's something that we've been thinking about. I think when it comes to doing more of the bulk and almost the equivalent of like a wholesale orders for institutions like Kaiser, or for some of these bigger companies that Ricardo's mentioned, again, we have that capacity, and we'd like to be able to keep supporting those needs if it makes most sense.
Ricardo, last question before we go to the audience. We've been hearing, kind of rumors that eventually we should start planning about reopening the economy in limited fashion when we're ready for it. And there are guidelines now being created by both the states and various. In your perspective, and especially for us, where we're looking at it, it looks like that manufacturing is already starting to build up that capacity. What do you think? What do you see for the future for manufacturing in the next phase, during the recovery phase for LA?
I think, there's a reason why you've seen manufacturing be one of the sectors where we kind of start creaking that door opening a little bit. It's a context where there's so much more control than in other businesses. There's already a culture of safety, of processes and checklists, of inspections, frankly. And, you know, we have a better sense of, you know, of the folks that we need to work with, and, you know, on our end, in being able to develop a set of really clear and actionable steps that manufacturers can take to stay safe. And I think one thing that has been great about what's been happening with non-medical masks and the other items, for example, that Alexander is making, is that we already have some experience in making things safely under this environment. So we're not starting at zero. We've already learned a lot, and now it's going to be about sort of expanding that to other manufacturers, because while we have a lot of folks that are working in manufacturing, there's still a lot of stuff that's been significantly slowed down. So as sort of we start opening up and other markets start creating more demand for manufacturing, you know, I think we're going to be in a good position to help guide folks through that process.
Thank you, Ricardo. And I know you have a hard stop at 11:30, so I want to be respectful.
I do.
So
all right.
thank you.
It was great. Thank you.
And meanwhile, I want to turn it back to Jessica, who's been working to make sure that we have the questions coming through from the audience. So at this point, I'll pass it back to Jessica.
Great, thank you so much. So Kathleen, this first question is for you. How many fabric mills are there in Southern California?
Oh my gosh, that's a piece of local manufacturing trivia. I don't know if I can answer for you. I can say that we've worked with about 5 different mills, and that's probably a small proportion of all those available in LA County. We work with, they're all primarily knit manufacturers, so there's not a lot of woven capacity and capabilities rather here in LA, but there's a number of yarn spinners, mills, and dye houses in LA.
Great, thank you. This question is for Alexander. Where did the fully automated N95 mask manufacturing machine come from?
This one, it is actually a purchase in China, because we have transferred all our manufacturing to China. And right now, automation and all the system integration, everything, it is happening over there, unfortunately. But I'm going to do something about this. When I receive my machine in here, I'm going to do the same thing Chinese did with us. We're going to reverse engineer it, and we build it right here in downtown LA. And I'm going to make multiple of them in here that we never will be dependent on them again for needed equipments that we need here.
Thank you. Kathleen, Reformation also has operations in London. Can you tell us a bit about how their operations have been impacted and any major differences between US and UK operations?
So we have retail throughout the United States, in Canada, and in the UK. So our retail operations have been functionally suspended worldwide. So we do not do manufacturing in the UK, but we closed all of our stores actually quite proactively in early March. We were one of the first retailers to close it, just because, like Ricardo was talking about, in a manufacturing environment, you have a lot more control of who's in the facility, who's coming and going. In a retail environment, that's naturally harder, and we were concerned about our team's safety. So we closed all of our stores in early March, and they continue to be closed. We are following, local and more regionalized guidance as there starts to be more around what and when is a safe way to open. But I think our UK customer and our UK market especially is very conservative when it comes to that, and we'll be looking for again, local kind of guidance on what's going to be appropriate when it comes to operating in London again come the summer.
Thank you. Alexander, should US companies, and the world for that matter, rethink reliance on China for manufacturing?
Definitely. I think that we had enough of it. And majority of this manufacturing moving outside of the United States is not because we cannot make things. We have a capability, we have intelligence, we have a capacity, we have everything right here. Only thing, it is the greed of the executives that they want to make it cheaper, and they're looking for the lower price manufacturing globally in order to increase their profit margin, because they are dependent on the bonuses of their maximizing the profit for their stockholders, and that's allocated with. We need to start to think about a bit different. We have a revolution is happening. This is called localization, customization, and automation. This is our future, and we are at the cusp of it. And here in Los Angeles, we have everything available to be able to even provide for our whole nation all the needed equipment, all needed materials that they need. And that's what my goal is, to bring the job back in LA. Since 18 years ago, when I have brought my factory from Florence, Italy to Los Angeles, everybody told me, you are crazy. Why don't you go to China? It's cheaper. I said, no, I want to stay right here local. And now I'm glad that I did that. Otherwise, I would have not been able to operate now at this moment.
Thank you. Is there a place where people can see photos of the products that you guys have newly produced and original products?
For are you asking Kathleen or me?
I'll ask both of you, actually.
Okay.
Go ahead, Alexander.
Yeah, yes, we have a website called ZMask and LaLa Land PPE, and our lalaland-design.com is guide you through those and show you that what we make. We make face shield, we make protective gowns, level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. We are making a mask that is formed like a KN95 3M version with melt blown everything in it, and several other. And I love fashion. I'm not gonna leave my fashion world behind. Now I have introducing my whole collection of the fashion masks coming in. So you will see it very soon on our website, all the fashion masks that we are introducing.
That's awesome. I can do that too. Our website is at thereformation.com, and you can shop our masks as well as our apparel.
Thank you. Kathleen, I'll ask you this one. Are the masks and gowns you are making sold to LA and California hospitals before the national market?
So we are not making gowns. I think Alexander can talk to that more. We're just making masks at this point. We started prototyping some gowns per the request of some of the local hospitals, so that might be coming soon, but that's not active for us right now. When it comes to the masks, we're distributing those through a few different ways. We're selling them on our website, so direct to consumer. So you can actually buy just a pack of 5, and that's going to customers across the United States, and anyone that's shopping our site. So we have about 40% of those masks staying in California, but really they're going all over, a lot to New York. I think the other kind of pathway is doing, again, more bulk orders and servicing some of these institutional buyers. So we are primarily donating right now. So we're producing and just donating masks to UCLA Health and a lot of the local nonprofits. So starting with some of the mission homeless shelters, so that the staff that are still working in those environments, as well as the people they serve, can have that protection. We're doing that on kind of like a weekly basis as we start to produce more and get this stuff out. And I think that the priority for donation right now has been keeping it into LA, just because, again, that's where we are. That's our immediate community. That's where the need has been. I think as production ramps, we can open that up wider, because we are getting requests from organizations across the US for these masks.
Thank you. We have a lot of people, I think, on this chat that have questions about, they're doing something similar and they want to know how they can contact people to help. So Alexander, do you have some input on the best organization to contact to find out what the needs are for hospitals and other groups? And just, is there a central point of contact that is collecting demand and supply information?
To be honest with you, no. But I have been very interesting for me that I am currently supplying a state of Colorado, a state of Maryland, a state of Virginia, a state of Ohio, a state of Illinois, but I sell only one company here in California, and that is Ventura County. I think this is because we have offered that we are doing all of these things, but I think the process of the acquisition in California, it is so crazy, and it is not coming to local people. So the other week, I got the state of Illinois actually referred the procurement office of Los Angeles to us, because they said they want them to provide a gown to them, and they said, we are buying from LaLa Land in Los Angeles. How come you don't know who produced this stuff for you guys locally? So that's a biggest dilemma that I had in here, that we don't know how to reach. And I reached, and I think that I know many people in this city, but unfortunately for the protective gowns, it seems like it is a small little group that they're controlling pretty much what the state it is purchasing.
And Jessica, if I can just chime in quickly, since Ricardo had to jump off, that was some of the vision of LA Protects when we got started, was how can we actually have a capture point basically for producers to say, I'm making this stuff, or I have the ability to make this stuff, and for those buyers. And the goal was actually to facilitate that marketplace, and that's how the program has been operating. I know it's been a little bit bumpy to start. Again, a lot of these facilities are just starting to kind of ramp up some of the productions. It took a few weeks to get it going. But I would encourage anybody that again is on either side of that equation to look at LA Protects and reach out to Ricardo and his team, because that is one of the really essential functions they're trying to play in this process.
And Jessica, I'll also add to that. The city of Los Angeles obviously is moving forward with LA Protects, but the county of Los Angeles, because Los Angeles is so big, there are 80 different cities and we're over 100 incorporated regions. So we're really a mini country in many ways. So to coordinate all of that becomes very challenging. So LA County, if you go through their website, doingbusiness.lacounty.gov, you can also provide the similar information for LA County. And the state of California, through the governor's office, has a similar process as well. It's COVID-19 supplies.ca.gov. So there are multiple levels of folks trying to coordinate, but it becomes very challenging because, again, with California with 40 million people, to coordinate it, it's not so easy. So at least there are multiple access points for companies that are looking for that information.
Thank you so much. Alexander, on this one, how are these people that are working and making all these contributions, how are you being compensated for labor and material?
It is the biggest challenge that I have right now. It is the astronomical demand that we have and cash flow, because we have to purchase everything 100% in advance. Nobody will work in the financing anymore. Nobody give the credit. I have to buy the material. I have to pay everybody in cash to produce it, and then wait 30 days for the state to pay me. And that becomes a tremendous difficulty for me. And I should thank NVIDIA CEO for stepping up and financing us at zero finance, $2 million to help us to facilitate and keep the job in LA. That helped me to import the product and make sure that I can produce it domestically rather than depending on the overseas. And there are not many people out there that they are willing at this moment to take a risk. And I should really take my hats off to them, because they are also true heroes that see the needs and stepping up to make that need addressed.
Thank you. There's another person who is also in manufacturing who would like to send in a small technical staff into one of their large facilities to technically tool up and test producing masks. Is that possible to do now during this lockdown period, even if they're taking all the precautions of wearing gloves, masks, and having ample space to do that kind of transformation at their factory? Alexander, I might direct that one to you.
Yeah, I believe that it is possible. And all you need to do is just be cautious. You are an essential worker and you are getting into the essential services. So therefore, as long as you're protecting yourself more than anything else and the others, with wearing the mask, sanitizing your hand, wearing the gloves if you can, and make sure that you are protected and you're protecting others, it is highly recommended from my point of view to just get involved. Let's put hands in hands to through our community, and let's address those needs, because demand is so much. I cannot personally, with all the people that I have brought on board, I cannot even put a dent in what they are asking me to produce. So therefore, more people that come on board and more people they get involved, we can address our needs domestically.
And,
Thank you.
Jessica, for that particular question, Kathleen mentioned this before, but LAProtects.org, they actually have information specifically about safety precautions for manufacturing, so they can follow guidelines in terms of what the city is recommending as a safe way to do it. And also they have specification and materials for non-medical masks. So a lot of great information is on that site, so they should definitely access that site for more information and guidelines.
And Ricardo mentioned it, but there's not a really formal process. Depends on where you are, whether you're in the city of LA or whether you're in the unincorporated areas or any of these other cities. So first and foremost, maybe talk to your own attorney first to decide whether you should open. But following those guidelines, and there is a county checklist that's required to be posted if you are operating. So I think if you follow both of those, kind of to take those steps proactively, that's been the guide that a lot of us that are starting to remobilize have been doing in these first steps.
Thank you so much. I think I'm going to direct this one to both Kathleen and Alexander, just from your own company's perspectives. How much output reduction was there in general during the shutdown period? Maybe Kathleen, if you can start. Oh, go ahead, Alexander.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it actually due to the fact that I produce for the one of the largest conglomerates of the fashion world, I have seen drastic drop from the 7,000 units per week that we produce for them. We reduced to the almost about 1,500 units, and that because the biggest market for the luxury market, it was China, and China was under lockdown and nobody was purchasing. However, I see that demand is starting to increase again because China is already back on running, but our whole entire the fashion world got interrupted, and a lot of my customers like Vince completely dropped their development and the production. So there are defense of how strong that brand is and how successfully they can carry on through this very, very, very unknown territory right now.
Yeah, similarly, I think even a brand like Reformation, that's not exactly at the luxury price point, so a little bit more accessible for folks, get in these uncertain times. We've seen our demand and sort of our inventory queues reduce around 60 to 75% during shutdown, and obviously, our output and our production capacity was totally on hold. We did obviously honor the stay-at-home until we were able to pivot. So we are not producing anything. We're vertically integrated, so we normally are producing apparel for our own brand. Obviously, that's all on hold, and we are really just focused on the PPE and the essential work for now until we have more information and more indicators that we can kind of resume normal. So that's kind of our current state.
Thank you so much. Stephen, I might actually bring you in on this one because you might have a sense of this too. What is driving up the cost of air shipping from China? Is it the dramatic decrease in commercial flights, or is there other stuff going on?
Yeah, I think that's one of the major reasons. The reason why you see when it comes to logistics, the price been dropping over the last few decades is because of increased capacity and increased connectivity and competition amongst the airlines going to one direction, one location. Now, basically flying in and out of China is pretty much Air China that's able to do that. And they've, in the previous conversation we had about 3 weeks ago here in this webinar, Dr. Shi mentioned that basically they're reducing it to a fraction of their capacity. So when you have limited capacity, you're going to basically see a jump in costs. So that's one of the major reasons as well. And unfortunately, we're not going to see any major changes in the upcoming months or weeks at least. And as both the speakers, Kathleen and Alexander, mentioned before, don't look at the rates because it's so high right now. And I think that's going to continue for a while.
Thank you. Alexander, I think this one might be for you. Can I work with someone to join the manufacturing team? So I think people are looking to see if you're hiring.
I am. I am just right now looking into expansions of my production capacity. I'm looking to lease a 30,000 square foot. I'm already operating on 30,000 square foot to be able to ramp up our domestic production of the gowns, because we are starting to go to the next level of the protective gowns, level 2, 3, and 4, and those need to be domestically produced because the prices that is coming from China right now, it is ridiculous. We can produce half of their prices right here domestically than what they are asking right now at the wholesale level.
Thank you. This question is, and again, you guys might have some insight to share with this person, but what can they do to get the PPE they make to the end user? They have about 30,000 face shields made right now, and they just are hitting a bureaucratic logjam trying to get it to hospitals. So right now, all of their, I guess all of their merchandise or all of their stock is just sitting on a dock.
It is challenging question. I have a very, very agile salesperson that she has been very, very proactive and was able to secure a lot of business for us that I tell her every morning, hold on, no more orders. I cannot handle anymore. But I don't know how she does it, but typically to get to sell a product, or we have to go through the governmental agency that they have their own procedures, bidding, and a net 30 and all of those things, or otherwise selling it directly online. I think that if you sell direct to consumer online, if the hospitals they need it, and if the people they know it is available for immediate shipment, they will purchase it from you. They do not need necessarily going through the whole traditional process. Ventura County, for instance, when they started to work with us and we could not give them a terms, they said, okay, just charge us our credit card, you know, and they were putting their credit cards and we were just shipping based on the limit of up to the $10,000 a day. So every day we will make sure that it is not going to go above $10,000 that we could get paid for it. So therefore, I think direct to consumer would be best choice, and do the small little Google ad, and believe me, you will sell everything you have.
Great, thank you. This will be our final question. Alexander, have you found local resources that can provide you with the raw materials for the PPE gowns you are making?
No, I have not. It is only 3 companies in the United States that they make the PPE, and all of them, they are the large conglomerate, and they are producing it for their own internal use. However, I was able to source for the other 5 million gowns material that they're all on the ocean in the container because I couldn't airship them. So everything is coming by the ocean freight, and they're gonna hit from the both sides. I'm bringing from the East Coast and West Coast in order to not have the issue with the my production flow. Right now, all my factories, they are humming along. So I want to make sure that they have the raw materials constantly fed to them. And this will secure me for at least about the 3 months of the work, and constantly I'm bringing and sourcing globally material for myself.
Great. And where is that link, that video that shows how to make a mask? Someone was asking.
It is on my LaLa Land design. If we go, I put the, it was on my LinkedIn. I work with this team, very creative team here. It's called the Heyman. They used to make custom Nike shoes, reconstructing Nike shoes, and they put the video together, and I linked it to them and say, guys, take on this because I don't have time, and you guys, you are making custom shoes, so you can take step by step to teach people how to make the shoes. So now teach them how to make the mask. So I would be very happy to put that link on my website at lalaland-design.com, that people, they can go and check it out. And if they need the material, we have our, I think around 50,000 units already cut and prepared and ready to be shipped. Anybody want to start to stitch?
Great, thank you so much, Stephen. I'll let you take it over now.
Great. Well, thank you so much to the speakers for sharing such great information. As the questions are coming in, I realize that there are a lot of attendees here that are needing information about kind of the resources that are available. I also forgot to mention that I have a second job with the LA County Economic Development Corporation. And if you go to laadc.org, we've been collecting a lot of new information that's coming through, whether it's about the Small Business Administration's PPP program, or whether it's the City of Los Angeles or the County of Los Angeles micro loans or micro grant program. And with the 88 cities, for example, El Monte just came up with their own small business assistance program. We're putting all that information to one site so you can access it very easily. And for a lot of small businesses, as they're looking at, kind of retooling and pivoting themselves, they're also needing additional financial and additional resources. So please use that website, ladc.org, and look for coronavirus, the link, then you'll be able to get some of those information. So that's one. But I want to thank the two speakers, not only for sharing your information, but what you're doing right now during this very, very important time. As an economic development agency, we're very fearful of what's going to happen to our economy as we're seeing unemployment number just completely jump through the roof, and it's very devastating for us to get these calls from companies every single day in terms of the struggles that they're facing. And to hear that you're able to pivot and be able to create these new products and be able to save jobs and be able to potentially even hire more people, that's just wonderful. And we're hoping that more and more folks will follow suit and be able to get us through this really difficult time together. So thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for partnering with the City of Los Angeles and throughout the entire region, because we need more stories like you to help us uplift our spirits during this very difficult time. And lastly, I just want to thank again the World Affairs Council for hosting these very important conversations, because it allows us to share really good information to the public as they're trying to deal with their own issues as well. So Kim, thank you very much for this, and I'll pass it back on to you.
Thank you, Stephen, for moderating another great program. And Kathleen and Alexander, this was such a phenomenal talk. Thank you so much for joining us and for everything you're doing to keep us safe. For those of you in the audience, please join us tomorrow for Politics in the Time of Coronavirus with Dan Schnur. And then next week, we have Gene Sperling, former head of the National Economic Council, who will be discussing America's economic inequality and historic unemployment. And of course, we have next week's weekly series, Politics in the Time of Coronavirus. And finally, May 12th, please join us for a fabulous program with former Governor Jerry Brown, who will be discussing what he learned as governing California and advice he has for U.S. governors who are facing the toughest decisions of their political careers. On the control panel, you'll see a wording that says handouts. You can click on that and see all of our upcoming programs. Please stay safe and hope to see you soon. Thank you, everyone.